What is up, guys? Quincy Carrier back at it again, and I'm finally done driving all around the earth because I just came back from Cincinnati Bengals camp. Very short practice today. Not too much to take away on the field, but a lot to take away with just how things were managed and how I think Zach Taylor is going to do as a first-year head coach. But let's start with the on the field stuff because there was some good, there was some bad with the Bengals. First thing I'm going to say is that the Bengals kind of resemble what they've always been, a team with a lot of passing threats. Right now, obviously, A.J. Green is injured, but they do have Tyler Boyd. They have C.J. Uzama as a tight end. They have Eifert. They have a lot of options there still without A.J. Green, although they're missing a certain dynamic without A.J. Green. Tyler Boyd, while he is a great route runner, just is not a number one wide receiver and obviously doesn't even come close to filling the void that A.J. Green leaves that offense. Andy Dalton looks like Andy Dalton. You can take that for whatever it is. He looks like a starting NFL quarterback. And then the running backs didn't get to see Mixon or Gio Bernard, or even Rodney Anderson from Oklahoma, their draft pick. But I would reasonably assume that Mixon and Gio are going to look like Mixon and Gio have the last few years. I have no reason to believe that they're either going to take a step or even take a step back. So they're going to be really, decent there at running back. The problem with this team is the same problem as last year. They really didn't fill any holes, and they weren't helped because Jonah Williams, the first-round draft pick, is out for the season most likely. There's rumors that he might come back, but by the time he's healthy, it's probably not going to even be worth it to have him play. But this offensive line is just not good. It's not going to hold up in this division against some of the fronts. I don't see it holding up in the interior very well against the Ravens, even though they don't have that great of a pass rush. I definitely don't see this line holding up against the Steelers or the Browns defensive lines at full strength. They're just going to have issues with pass protection and run blocking the entire season. I think that's going to tank their season. I think that's going to get them a lot of injuries. I think that might even take Andy Dalton out. I just the offensive line is bad enough to a point to where it really limits how high you can be on the Bengals. Now, on the flip side of the ball, the defensive line looks really solid. Carlos Dunlap looking like he's going to have a breakout year. Geno Atkins looks solid still, even though he is getting up there in age. Linebackers are a huge question mark. Nobody really standing out at that position that you would want to. And then the defensive backs, they all right. Nobody really stood out. They pretty much look like the same team from last year, especially since they didn't have A.J. Green for a lot of that portion of the season. So, there's more of the same with the Cincinnati Bengals is what I saw. Now, when I get into some of my concerns, please take this with a grain of salt because I think I just came to this camp on a very, very bad day. I think I saw the worst they have to offer. So I don't think this is necessarily fair, since it was only one day, to say this is representative of the Bengals camp in how Zach Taylor does things. But I just got a very unorganized feel, and I don't know whether it's because they're unorganized or because the Steelers, Ravens, and Browns just felt so machine-like and buttoned up in comparison. Or maybe I'm just tired because I've been to all these camps, but there was just, it just felt, the practice felt sloppy. It felt sloppy when they were changing in and out of the drills. Seemed like people just didn't know where to go. A lot more downtime and goofing off in between drills, I noticed, than other camps have. And the intensity and physicalness of this camp just was nowhere near the level that it is with the other three teams in the division. And this was kind of a common thread. I don't want to say that the players in any way are soft, but I will say that the camp itself, the camp environment, felt like one of the softer environments in the AFC North or even in the NFL. just didn't feel like there was a sense of urgency. Didn't feel like people were really using time well. And here's where I left Bengals practice with a very, very bad taste in my mouth about the coaching staff. Um, it was about 1 hour into practice, and there started to be a little bit of rain. They were in the middle of a special teams drill. They were really walking through it after a couple of reps. So it wasn't like they were going full speed anymore at this time. And it was a little bit of rain, enough to notice it, but no thunder or anything. But the second that rain picked up just a little bit for a few seconds, the team automatically wrapped it up and just went to their locker rooms in Paul Brown Stadium, which is actually, they have to cross the street to do that. And it was almost like right when the rain picked up just a little bit, they decided to pack it in and go inside, which is significant because, again, they don't have an indoor practice facility. Can't pick up this practice and continue it. And this is only an issue because by the time they probably crossed the street and walked inside of Paul Brown Stadium, the rain had stopped. It had stopped for about 45 minutes. But they wasted that entire 45 minutes that they could have used practicing being inside the stadium and having to walk back and then having to warm up again because they don't have an indoor facility where they can just continue practice. And by the time they were warmed up and ready to go, the thunderstorm that they were trying to avoid hit, and that was it. They wasted about an hour of practice because they just didn't wait out like 5 seconds of rain. And that just strikes me as particularly soft to not practice through a little bit of rain. I mean, this is the NFL. You're going to play in rain, especially in Ohio. You're going to play in rain. I didn't understand the decision to cut it off right when rain happened. You play in the AFC North. The elements are going to be something you have to get used to. So it really was questionable even at that point. But then the mismanagement of it to just have them come out 30 minutes later. There was no thunder, so they didn't have to go in. It wasn't mandated. There was no thunder at that time. And then by the time you get everybody out, the thunderstorm that you're trying to avoid hits. And it's like, it just is such an obvious mismanagement of the situation. And I don't know specifically who's at fault, but I know the coaching staff has a say in when they go inside and when they practice through elements. I mean, every coach has that latitude in the NFL. And it was just very disheartening to see how bad that was fumbled around. If you tack that on top of what I saw earlier in camp with just some of the confusion, it just didn't seem tidy. It makes me concerned about the first-year head coach. And this being the Bengals, he's probably going to be there for the next 5 years. They don't like paying somebody to sit at home. So he's going to get time to develop. He's probably going to grow. But it did make me think of the difference between first-year head coach. And part of that isn't really Zach Taylor's fault. It's they just don't have the proper facility. And it really made me appreciate what Marvin Lewis was able to do. I mean, if you think about it, they don't have an indoor practice facility. They get their practices rained out, and they don't practice that often. Their practice schedule is very light. And they have to sacrifice days due to the rain. And it's like, how can you put a team together in those circumstances? And it adds up to almost losing like a third of training camp due to not having an indoor facility, due to not practicing as much as other teams. And it's hard to just get a team together. So I kind of walked away impressed with Marvin Lewis because he's been able to. And again, circling back to Marvin Lewis, if the criticism of him was that he was too soft, I don't see that changing with their new head coach. I didn't see, a change of attitude. I didn't see a sense of urgency or an extra layer of intensity that a lot of the other teams in the division have at their practices. It just lacked a lot. I mean, the team, the players, they're solid. This isn't a terrible team. They're not half bad. But I think in this division, they're just a step behind everybody else. And that's going to make them a last place team. And I think because of that, I think this team's ceiling is really 7-9, more than likely 6-10. And I know that Bengal fans might not want to hear this, or some of them may want to, but I think you're at a point to where you're almost in no man's land as a franchise, because with Andy Dalton, with AJ Green, with Geno Atkins, you're not going to be bad enough to land a top 5 pick. You're going to be good enough to always be picking 10, 11, 12. You're not going to be awful. And I think if you're the Bengals, I would trade Andy Dalton. I would trade AJ Green. I would trade Geno Atkins, and any other piece over the age of 27, just because it's time to rebuild. It's time to strip this thing to the studs and get some new blood in there and really change this organization for the better. But that's not an easy thing for teams to do. It took somebody as crazy and, some will say as dumb as Sashi Brown to do that for the Browns. But I think it does have their benefits, especially with the Bengals, because they can get real assets back for AJ Green especially. But Andy Dalton's going to command probably a really good draft pick, and so would Geno Atkins. So they could get a lot of draft capital to rebuild and rebuild quickly so they don't get left behind, and maybe overtake the Steelers once Big Ben retires, or if Lamar doesn't progress like a lot of people think he will. That's the problem with the Bengals. They're mediocre. They're not good enough to really make noise, but they're not bad enough to get a good pick. And that is going to be the issue. And seeing how they handle that, I think they should trade everybody of note on this team in order to rebuild. I know it's a radical idea, but I think it's one worth looking at. I think it's even more of a good idea because the Bengals do have a lot of good talent. I mean, you can trade AJ Green, but you still have Tyler Boyd. You can trade Andy Dalton, but you will probably have a chance at getting a guy like Tua if you do that. You could trade Geno Atkins, but honestly, they have a lot of depth at defensive line, so I don't think that would be missed too much. I think they're in a good position to do that, and that would really, really help them out as a franchise. Now, it's a long-term play. It would probably make them miserable this season, but I think it would benefit them down the line. But let me know what you think of that plan in the comment section down below. Do you think the Bengals should just move on to the next generation of their rebuild, or do you think that they should stand pat and maybe they have a chance at making a wild card or even winning the division if they keep their roster and everybody stays healthy? I know they had a lot of injuries last year, but again, with this offensive line, they're probably going to have a good amount of injuries, at least with their backs and quarterbacks, because it just does not look like it's going to hold up in this division. But again, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And if you like this video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and ding that notification bell so you can know when I upload. And I'm uploading like crazy this month. And if you really like me and you want to play fantasy football against me and talk all this garbage on Twitter at me when you beat me, please join the Patreon. $1 a month gets you in. And if you message me, let me know you're interested. I'll write your name down. You can play. Just make sure you do that before August 10th. That's when I'll shut everything down. Whoever's on the list is on the list. Whoever's not is not. And we just gonna move on. But thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.